The Chaos Gods. The Immaterium, the warp, is not chaotic by itself in its primordial state, but large swathes of it have been made chaotic by the effects of mortal life, mortal consciousness, and the mortal psyche as souls that leak into it. Mortal consciousness, mortal souls, and soul fragments whip up the warp into storms of concept and chaos. But what, then, are the gods? What are the old four? What are the demon gods? What is Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh? Let's pick on Khorne, the blood god. Demon king of rage, anger, and violence. How did he come to be? If like attracts like in the warp, forming into supermassive vortices of related emotions, experiences, and ideas. And if these vortices became what we call the Chaos Gods, what started off the chaos vortex that is Khorne? Most of, even the most simple forms of sentient life, have some sort of survival instinct. The fight or flight response, let's say. Before concepts of war, battle, or duels, or even a distinct emotion like hate or rage came into being, many simple creatures evolved some sort of instinctive response to survive. I would suggest that the warp vortex that eventually became Khorne started out as the instincts and feelings of the fight within fight or flight, the fight to survive, and it began to coalesce in the warp. This would also include the instinct to dominate and consume other creatures for one's own survival too. So the fight to survive is both defensive but also offensive. These instincts and drives are vastly older than anger, than hate, and it's certainly older than more complex understandings of violence like hunting, dueling, or warfare. But as mortal creatures evolved, so too did our experiences, our perceptions, our feelings, and the concepts around the desire to fight and survive. Anger, rage, hate, bloodlust, the satisfaction of defeating prey or predators, skill at arms, concepts of hunters, war, warriors, and soldiers, all these grew over millennia as mortal consciousnesses and intelligence grew. The gravitational pull of the warp vortex of fight to survive probably exerted its pull on all these related perceptions and feelings and concepts and experiences as they evolved. At the same time, alongside psychological output, the warp was also filling with souls and dissipated soul fragments of untold trillions of mortals. And those souls, or those bits of souls that were defined by their rage, their anger, their hate, their desire for violence, or defined by some violent trauma perhaps, or specific acts of violence, along with professional warriors and soldiers, all their souls would have been drawn to the same warp vortex until the point came where that vortex stopped simply drawing these things together unconsciously and started to draw them together consciously. Before a vortex became fully conscious, self-aware and intelligent, it would probably have accumulated rudimentary sentience of some sort, where it would also actively seek to draw to itself more of the things that fed it, that made it conscious. And it is that path that eventually leads to the awakening of a chaos god, in this case Khorne. These entities become complex and self-perpetuating archetypes. In Khorne's case, his core is fight, just fight. And he promotes the emotions, the thoughts, the events that increase the desire and necessity to fight, which then empowers him further. He will even expend massive amounts of energy to interact with the material universe in whatever way he can in order to promote the activities, feelings, attitudes, and ideologies that ultimately create the act of violence or the experience of violence, the perceptions and concepts and feelings around violence, like rage, hatred, anger, bloodlust, militarism, and the desire for conquest, all to add to his own power and broaden his existence within the war. The same can be said for Khorne's sister brother Slaanesh. So most creatures have some sort of reward mechanism, like the release of positive hormones or other chemicals that make the creatures feel pleasure, contentment, or satisfaction from doing the things they need to do to survive, like eating, drinking, or mating to propagate the species. A mechanism that encourages living creatures to keep doing these things for as long as they can in order to ensure maximum survival. From that basic drive, that basic reward mechanism, all additional pleasures, delights, and satisfaction evolve. Be they physical, emotional, spiritual, altruistic, or hedonistic, you name it. All pleasure, satisfaction, and feel good, and all ecstasy, all of it builds on this core reward mechanism, and all of it feeds Slaanesh. Now that may not sound too bad, and it may beg the question why the Chaos Gods are so destructive and terrifying if they can be made up of and seek to promote satisfaction, pleasure, and ecstasy. That can't be so bad. But I think the answer to that comes down to the nature of the warp and these metaphysical entities within it. Whereas a mortal is a physical being in a physical existence bound by time, dimension, space, the Chaos Gods are not. A human may enjoy eating or drinking, but there will come a point when they are sated or when their bodies just tell them to stop. No mortal can feel ecstasy for every microsecond of every moment for its entire existence, because if it did, it wouldn't exist for long. Mortal existence brings with it far too many other pressures, necessities, and interests for that to be the case. The Chaos Gods, however, are completely unlimited in their desire and their need to feed upon and promote the emotions and concepts that comprise their own essences. So Khorne doesn't just feel rage, he is rage. He feeds on rage but can never be sated. He is always starving for more, every moment for all eternity. He is fundamentally addicted to it, and all of his thoughts, all of his near infinite will and divine attention is perpetually focused upon getting his next fix of rage or violence. And no amount is enough, and no amount is too much either. Khorne needs more and more and more rage, violence, bloodlust, faster and faster, bigger and bigger, forever and ever, until all existence burns out. He will never be satisfied, he will never be sated. Slaanesh is the same. So enjoying a nice cup of tea might give Slaanesh something, and in the absence of anything else, Slaanesh will promote the enjoyment of tea if there's nothing else. But just as the gods are insatiable addicts for experiences, perceptions and emotions that make them up, so too will they seek to make every mortal just as desperately starving and addicted as they are themselves to those same things. So tea might work for a very short while, but if you are being influenced by Slaanesh, or if you have foolishly dedicated your soul to the Prince of Pleasure, then sooner or later, irrespective of how long you manage to hold out, you will be driven to seek out every possible pleasure and pursue it to the most extreme nth degree. You'll become a bit like the Drukhari, but even worse. Once you've indulged every conceivable pleasure, way past Epicureanism, way past the worst excesses of hedonism, Slaanesh will keep driving you on to seek new experiences, new sensations, and to find pleasure in them, even if they are disturbing, gratuitous, and horrific beyond the desires of even the most horrendous Cenobite from the Hellraiser series. Once you're on the Slaanesh train, there is no end, there is no stop, until you either become a demon, or you're consumed down to your tiniest subatomic particle by Slaanesh.